All right, welcome back. I just wanted to do a follow-up video on some more thoughts I've got about this Ruger RXM. I continue to be impressed with this. I've put about 400 rounds through this over the last couple of days, and I just wanted to do some follow-up comments about what I've noticed. So first and foremost, one of the things that I didn't notice till after my first range session, and I'll do some photos and some video and include it so that you can see what I'm talking about. There's an issue with the finish of this gun, and I'm not sure if it's because of how it was handled at the shop and then put away, or if this came from the factory, but it looks like there's fingerprints that are etched in that you can see under the right lighting conditions. I'm not a real big finish guy, so for me that's not a big deal. At some point this will probably get sandblasted and refinished anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. But just something to think of if you're looking at these. Make sure you take a good look at the finish, wipe off all the excess oil or whatever that may come on it, and take a look, move it under the sunlight so that you can see whether or not the finish is perfect or not. Other than that, I continue to have some issues with Magpul magazines, and just Magpul magazines when I use Blazer aluminum cased ammo. So Saturday when I was out here, I went to download one of the magazines to do a build drill, reload build drill. So I wanted to have the right number of rounds in there, and one of the rounds somehow got bound up about yay far down in the magazine, which probably would have caused me some feeding issues. I noticed it before it caused me any feeding issues, so I took that magazine, actually the Magpul magazines, and replaced them with OEM Glock magazines for the rest of the time that morning or that afternoon while I was shooting the aluminum cased ammo. Last night I went and shot a match, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to give the Magpul mags and the aluminum ammo one more shot to see if it was a fluke or not, and it wasn't. On one of the stages I had a malfunction with a 21 round Magpul magazine and this aluminum cased Blazer ammunition. So for me, I'm going to stop using the aluminum cased ammo with Magpul magazines for anything that's important. I may still use it in training. It gives me some extra malfunction drills, I guess. But for the time being, I still have had zero issues with Glock OEM magazines and any type of ammo that I've shot it with. But I have had some malfunctions that I'm going to attribute to a combination of the aluminum cased ammo and the Magpul magazines. So just something to keep in mind. As you can see, between my first session and this session, I mounted a Swamp Fox Justice onto this. The optic went on without an issue. I was able to use, two of those locator pins that they include on the front, mounted this, torqued it up, and now I've got about 425 rounds maybe downrange with the optic, and I've had zero issues with it moving or coming loose or losing zero, nothing like that. One thing I do want to point out, if you were planning on putting an optic on this RXM, one of the things you need to keep in mind is the height of the factory sights. So the Swamp Fox Justice is a tall decked red dot, and you can barely see the iron sights through the glass with this mounted up. It's probably about the tallest optic you're going to be able to use with these backups. If you want to put like a Delta Point Pro on there, you're not going to be able to use these iron sights. You're going to need to get a different set of sights. So think about that when you are considering what optic to put on here. Something like a Holosun 507C or a 407C shouldn't have any issues. The 507 and 407Ks, you shouldn't have any issues if those will fit. But if it's a larger sight with a tall deck, that is definitely something to keep in mind. One of the other things that I think I should mention, and I think it's actually where Ruger and Magpul kind of dropped the ball on this, is the light rail. So like the Generation 3 Glocks that it's based off of, it uses that Glock size slot instead of a 1913 sized slot, which I think was a failure on their part. But, you know, lights fit on there fine. They don't move around. But if you're like me and you've got multiple platforms, it is a pain to have some of your lights set up for the Glock Rail and others set up for the 1913 rail. I would hope in future models they switch that up. What I will probably do here in the near future is take a file and open up that slot so that it'll fit a 1913 rail. I've done that on others. The modifications that I've made to this that I think I mentioned in an earlier video, I replaced the guide rod and recoil spring with a spring and guide rod, a stainless steel guide rod from NDZ Performance, and it came with a 15-pound spring, which I prefer as opposed to the factory springs, which are I think 18 or 20-pound springs. So that's one of the mods that I do on all my Glocks, is switch that out and put a different spring in there. The heavier springs aren't necessary. With the lighter spring, I can actually track the dot better and get back on target faster. I also added a striker control device. For those of you who are interested in the striker control device, I've got 400 rounds downrange with it on there. Haven't had a single issue. Fits fine. Not getting any issues from that. If you're not familiar with the striker control device, it's basically a way to put your thumb on it when you're reholstering, and it keeps the striker from being moved backwards inadvertently by like clothing or one of them bungee cord things on the bottom of a coat, or you know, a sweatshirt or anything like that. But it fits, no issues. Once again, I continue to be impressed with this overall. With factory Glock magazines, I have had 0 issues, and I think I've had 3, maybe 4 issues with aluminum cased ammo and the Magpul magazines. Other than that, I've got really no bad things to say. I did come through and took some sandpaper to the bottom of the trigger guard here to radius that, made it a little bit more comfortable than what it came from the factory. But overall, I want to keep shooting this. I think I'm going to continue to be impressed, and I will keep you updated on one last thing that I think is kind of a fail on Ruger's part. So this particular model, their RXM, has a opening on the top of the barrel hood back here, and it's so you can see if there's a round in the chamber. I find that to be unnecessary because it's got the loaded chamber indicator on the side. My concern with that is if you were using a optic like the SRO or the Swamp Fox Justice 2 or the Trijicon RMR HD that has the optic glass sitting further forward, my concern is that that's going to make your glass dirty quicker than it normally would. I know I've had that issues with, especially on an SRO that I had. It was mounted further forward and it got super dirty super quick. Not a big deal, you just have to clean it, but that can be kind of a pain if you're doing long days on the range. But just something to think about. Like I said, overall, I continue to be very impressed, and I will keep you updated if I come across any issues. Thank you.
Stand by.